Next on Currents News, the Pope in Japan, his meeting with Japanese leaders and his message to stop nuclear war. Argentinian Bishop Zanchetta says he's cooperating with authorities as he faces sexual abuse and fraud charges. And a tech scam warning that's targeting local churchgoers this holiday season. What you need to know, plus 1 million rosaries, how one Queens parish is reaching an extraordinary goal put forth by the Pope. The news starts right now. Pope Francis arriving amid cheers at the Tokyo Dome, where 50,000 people filled the stadium to attend the papal mass. Good evening, I'm Ray Raymundi. Thank you so much for joining us. The Pope's itinerary in Japan for Monday was packed, but the theme was the same: peace and no nuclear weapons. Currents News' Emily Druby is joining us now with more on the Pope's message. Emily, it definitely was a strong one, right?
Yes, it was, Ray. The Pope has placed a heavy emphasis on both of those themes throughout the 2 days he's spent in Japan so far, especially today while meeting with the country's prime minister, and Sunday when he visited the only 2 cities to ever be hit by atomic bombs. Pope Francis descended the steps of his plane Saturday, becoming the first pope in 38 years to visit Japan. His arrival was a cheerful event, but his first official day took on a very different tone. Francis visited Nagasaki and Hiroshima, both devastated by atomic bombs in 1945, the only 2 cities to ever be hit by a nuclear blast. In Nagasaki, the Pope called on political leaders to fight for nuclear disarmament.
La paz y la estabilidad internacional.
Peace and international stability are incompatible with attempts to build upon the fear of mutual destruction or the threat of total annihilation.
The Pope also spoke about the importance of protecting all life. He met with survivors of the devastating attacks and prayed in silence for peace. Pope Francis was joined by thousands while celebrating Mass in Nagasaki alongside this Virgin Mary sculpture that survived the blast. Also, while in Nagasaki, the Pope visited the place where 26 Christians were martyred and crucified in the 1500s, taking time to remember all of those who suffer from Christian persecution.
Recemos por ellos.
Let us pray with them and for them. Let us speak out and insist that religious freedom be guaranteed for everyone in every part of our world.
Pope Francis filled his second full day in Japan with meetings with the youth who gifted him a special kimono, Emperor Naruhito, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and the victims of the country's devastating triple disaster, an earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear catastrophe that claimed the lives of 18,000 people in 2011. Visiting Japan has always been Francis's personal dream. When he was a young Jesuit, he had hoped to become a missionary in the country. Pope Francis will continue his apostolic journey tomorrow, where he'll visit with Jesuits, elderly priests, and the sick at Sophia University. Ray?
Emily, the Pope just came from Thailand, which has also a very small Catholic population. The same could be said about Japan, right?
Yes, Japan also has a really small Catholic population. There's fewer than 500,000 people, and that's out of the country's 127 million residents. But you would never know based off of all of the huge outpouring of support and love we saw for Pope Francis over the past couple days.
And we saw it at the top of our broadcast inside the Tokyo Dome. Emily, thank you so much for those updates. The Pope, meanwhile, has been invited to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Multiple news outlets are reporting South Korean President Moon Jae-in's office extended an invitation to meet both Korean leaders at the demilitarized zone separating North and South Korea. The invite is for tomorrow after the Pope wraps up his visit to Japan. The initial request was made at last year's Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity during Moon's visit to the Vatican. A second invitation was made in July. Moon's office reportedly has not yet received a response. In just a few moments, we'll have more on the Pope's message of peace when Hiroshima Peace Ambassador, the Reverend T.K. Nagasaki, joins us right here in studio. Parishioners at a Queens church were celebrating a big milestone this weekend. They've reached a goal they've been working on for over a year at one of the requests of Pope Francis. Currents News' Tim Harfman is at St. Paul's, where they've prayed the rosary more than 1 million times.
The power of prayer, 1 million decades strong. Parishioners at St. Paul Chang Ha Sang Church in Flushing, Queens reached their goal. Pray 1 million decades of the rosary. Bead by bead, it took them about a year. Parishioner Jung Sung Hung says the focus is on prayer.
The 1 million is not important. We gather our mind and hope for church.
As a parish, they had 2 prayer intentions. The first, unity throughout the church, which Pope Francis requested Catholics pray for last year. The second, for victims of clergy sex abuse. The church's pastor, Father Andrew Kim, says the crisis has been on their minds.
As a Catholic, it's shameful, but at the same time, through our prayer, they re-strengthen, rejuvenate their faith. So the church is not perfect, they understand, yet we try to be perfect through our prayers and then support one another.
As a sign of support, Catholics presented baskets on Sunday filled with names and how many decades each person completed. Gabriel Kim prays this will bring back Catholics who have turned away.
A lot of people, parishioners, leave the church, and hopefully with this event or with this milestone, we could have people come back.
After the Mass, the church burned the pieces of paper, signifying their prayers rising to heaven. In Flushing, Queens, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
A warning tonight to parishioners of the Diocese of Brooklyn. Those tech scammers are striking again. St. Thomas the Apostle Church in Woodhaven is the latest parish hit by thieves. The scammers targeting believers and getting away with thousands of dollars. A trusting churchgoer was asked by someone posing as her pastor to purchase gift cards for the sick. The parishioner was scammed out of $1,300. A string of similar cases plagued the diocese last spring. Now that it's giving season and may also be taking season, the diocese has warned if you get a text from a pastor, you should never donate. Instead, call police immediately. After months of rumors, the former mayor of New York City and one of the world's richest men has officially launched his presidential bid. Michael Bloomberg has now joined the crowded Democratic field. The former Republican announced his candidacy yesterday. Bloomberg is now positioning himself as the only candidate who can defeat President Donald Trump. As a centrist with deep financial ties, Bloomberg is expected to struggle with the party's growing progressive base. Polls show him entering the race tied for 5th place. To our nation's capital now, where the Navy Secretary has been forced to resign. He has been at odds with President Trump and his Pentagon Secretary over the handling of a Navy SEAL war crimes case. John Lawrence reports.
Navy Secretary Richard Spencer ousted this weekend.
You don't go to your boss's boss and petition without letting your boss know.
According to a senior defense official, Spencer proposed a secret agreement with the White House regarding the case of Navy SEAL Eddie Gallagher.
It befuddles me why, at that level, you would have conversations with the White House about something that is so controversial and so public without including your boss, in this case, the Secretary of Defense.
Gallagher was convicted in July of discrediting the armed services for posing next to the body of a dead 12-year-old ISIS fighter. Gallagher was demoted, but President Trump reinstated his rank last week against the advice of Defense Secretary Mark Esper.
This is all about ego and retaliation. This has nothing to do with good order and discipline. They could have taken my trident at any time they wanted. Now they're trying to take it after the president restored my rank.
The president tweeted Sunday that Spencer was fired because of how he handled the Gallagher case and because of cost overruns in Navy contracting. But Spencer says he was ousted because, quote, I no longer share the same understanding with the commander-in-chief who appointed me in regards to the key principle of good order and discipline. I'm John Lawrence reporting.
At the White House today, President Trump honored Conan, the hero dog who was injured during a raid which led to the death of ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Conan received a medal and a plaque from the president, who called him a tough cookie. The verdict is in for 2 cases of sexual abuse in Argentina, a judge finding 2 priests guilty of abusing 10 deaf children at a Catholic school. The 2 men were arrested in 2016 with claims of 25 acts of aggravated sexual abuse over a more than 10-year-long period. They were sentenced with 42 and 45-year prison terms. Bishop Gustavo Zanchetta says he will return to Argentina tomorrow, where he is being prosecuted for aggravated continuous sexual assault. A prosecutor had previously requested international assistance in arresting the bishop after he did not respond to repeated calls and emails. A statement by Zanchetta, who had been assigned to the Vatican, claims he has been cooperating with authorities. He says he only received 1 email from prosecutors which did not ask for a response. Zanchetta is denying the abuse charges. There's a lot more news headed straight your way. It was anything but a normal Sunday service at a Georgia church where an attack plot was foiled. The uplifting message from the pastor. And more on the Pope's mission for peace. We'll speak with the Nagasaki Peace Ambassador about its international importance. And a royal heist. Millions of dollars worth of jewels are swiped from a museum in Germany. Congregants at a church in Georgia praised God this weekend for keeping them safe from a thwarted knife attack. A teenage girl from Gainesville was arrested last week after her classmates alerted authorities she had detailed plans to kill members of a predominantly black church. Currents News' Michelle Powers with the story.
This congregation could have been in mourning. Instead, the Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church is sharing gratitude and courage after avoiding what police say was a planned knife attack.
Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do."
On Wednesday, November 6th, a 16-year-old girl showed up to this back door. There was supposed to be Bible study that night, but it was canceled so parishioners could prepare for the church's 118th anniversary the following weekend. Brother Robert Clark was with his son cleaning the floors when the girl appeared and asked if there was Bible study. He said no and shut the door. He remembers it was already dark outside and the girl had kept one hand in her pocket.
There's a lot of things that were going on in that night that could have happened. But then, see, y'all got to realize one thing: God is in control of this whole thing.
More than a week later, police say a fellow Gainesville high school student overheard a conversation about an alleged threat and reported it to a school resource officer. Gainesville Police Chief Jay Parrish did not mince words about the teen.
She is a racist.
He said the white suspect had researched black churches online, acquired knives, and written down how she planned to carry out the attack.
It's another wake-up call.
Reverend Dr. Michelle Reiser-Poole says she's overwhelmed with the support received, including people from all communities who came to this Sunday's service.
It lets you know that we're still a nation that loves and take care and want to support one another, because we recognize that what happens to one happens to us all.
Michelle Powers, Currents News.
Over now to Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu is saying the country is on high alert and a large-scale attack could be imminent. The prime minister believes Iran is planning attacks on the Holy Land, and he's vowing Israeli forces will foil them. Without giving many details, he assured the state everything possible would be done to prevent any loss of life. His comments come as he begins a battle for his own political life. Last week, Netanyahu was indicted on corruption charges. A massive manhunt is underway tonight after thieves broke into a German museum, making off with royal jewels. An unknown amount of the gold and precious stones from the royal house of Saxony were taken. Authorities say the items were of immeasurable historical and cultural value, but they did not give an exact dollar amount, saying it's only in the millions. A big win for pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. Results from the region's district council elections trickled in this morning. Multiple pro-democracy candidates won in landslide victories, causing high-profile government figures to lose their seats. More than 2.9 million people turned out to the polls on Sunday, higher than any other election in the city's history. The former head of the Diocese of Hong Kong, Cardinal John Tong Han, hopes both parties can work together for peace.
Finally, we can achieve reconciliation so that we can implement what the Lord asks to do, to love each other and to forgive other people's offenses. So that is the results of peace.
The Pope sent a telegram to the region on his way to Japan, praying for peace. Pope Francis delivered a message of peace yesterday at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial in Japan. Joining me now to share his thoughts is Reverend T.K. Nagasaki, a Buddhist monk. Dr. Nagasaki is a Hiroshima Peace Ambassador. Dr. Nagasaki, welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us. My first question I want to get to right away is to have you share your thoughts on what Pope Francis said at Hiroshima.
You know, a lot of people came and then enjoy or really appreciate his presence, really accepted very nicely. And I thought that his message was really great, that in a sense that he's really talking about disarmament, and also shaking hand with the weapons is really not the way it should be. Without the weapons, we shake each other and then we understand each other. That's for me, it's a great message.
Definitely is, and such an important message. I also want to ask, Japan does not have a sizable Catholic community. Why is it so important to hear from the pontiff, especially when it comes to interfaith, in a place that doesn't have a lot of Catholics, but he was so well received when he arrived?
People are familiar with the Catholic, and part of the history, learning the history of Japan, it's always Christian is a really important part of it.
I also want to kind of get you to talk about something that's near and dear to you. Next August marks the 75th anniversary of the nuclear bombings. How important is it for the world to continue to commemorate events like Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Why is that so important?
Nuclear weapons all over the place still. That normally if that's such the devastating experience, then we should stop. But then on the other, the world goes to the other way, like even like United States here. I mean, there's so many weapons. I mean, nuclear weapons we have, and we spend billions of millions of dollars to, make it modernized. And so, it is very important to re-emphasize. We don't need these particular weapons for humanity and for the earth.
How important is it to develop inner peace towards creating world peace, and how can religious faith do that, especially with the trip as such that we're talking about?
Yeah, I think sometimes religion became the source of conflict too, but then that's because of the one religion is better than the others and so forth. But now when we talk about interfaith or all the different religions meet together, then we try to do something together, not instead of fighting together, but rather cooperating each other for the peace. And that itself is very important. And then the world is getting closer. So we know each other. You can use the airplane and then you can go anywhere. And so it's this world is closer. And then all the information that we have, TV and all those, this media too.
That's right.
So everything is getting closer too. So I think it's time to be able to open more and then the dialogue. We are all human beings and we have different religions develop, and so it's time to have a globally, maybe we should have a conversation or dialogue between the religions.
Reverend T.K. Nagasaki, Hiroshima Peace Ambassador, thank you so much for taking time to share your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
Still to come on Currents News, a priest from Brooklyn joins his brothers to make music to raise money for those less fortunate in their homeland.
More beautiful and special.
And more uplifting music. This young boy you see right here is taking on bullies with song. Those stories are next. A pastor and his 9 brothers have a new album coming out. They're making waves with their distinctive sound and helping those in need. Currents News' Tim Harfman has the story.
There's no sibling rivalry when it comes to this Brooklyn priest and his brothers. Father St. Charles Borno is the pastor of Holy Innocents and Our Lady of Refuge churches in Brooklyn. Along with his 9 brothers, they're releasing a Haitian-style worship album. We caught up with 3 of them as they rehearsed. The album is titled Choisis Jésus, or Choose Jesus.
Most of the songs are songs of praise. It's about God coming into our lives and ultimately thank you songs.
The album took 2 years to complete and features 10 original songs, 9 of which are sung in French Creole. The youngest Borno brother, Jean-Marion, says the inspiration behind their music is their mother, Sylvie.
I feel great because I learned from my mom. I remember when I was 2, 3, 4 years old, I always saw my mom singing, always praise the Lord, and that's where I learned from.
My mom was always singing in the house. She used to sing all the songs. At times we asked, where did she get these songs?
The Borno brothers are releasing their album Saturday. Proceeds go to feeding children in Haiti.
We know that at times they spend the whole day without food. And at times they would go into school in the morning with no food.
Songs to feed the mind, body, and soul. In Flatbush, Brooklyn, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Finally tonight, a 9-year-old boy who's been bullied in school has a musical message for his tormentors and anyone who has ever found themselves in his place. Kelly Eckerman with the story.
Well, I only know how to play 4 chords. Sometimes people...
Cameron Henderson is in 3rd grade. He's been bullied at school and on social media. And now he's standing up for himself with a song he wrote called Look Within Yourself.
You're beautiful and special if no one ever tells you.
Cameron says it hasn't been easy, but putting his feelings into song is helping him heal.
If I cried, then I would get bullied more, and I wrote the song, and all of a sudden I felt better about myself.
He's also watched his sister being teased, so the song is for her and everyone out there who's faced it. His mom says the words made her cry, bringing back memories of all the hurtful moments, but she's proud he's rising above it.
When you listen to the song, you can hear that confidence, you can hear that he's happy with who he is. And he's kind of saying to the world, this is me.
You don't have to change a thing for someone else.
Cameron says the turning point came after someone called him trash.
Then I looked at my phone again and I was like, I'm not trash. Like, that's not true. That's not true at all. Just look within yourself.
And that inspired his message.
That was Kelly Eckerman reporting. His song is one of the more uplifting ways kids are addressing problems of bullying. That's all for this edition of Currents News. I'm Ray Mundy. Thank you so much for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.